So no good deed goes unpunished. So I've been involved with pros since we got started, and the second initiative basically has to do with contracts. And so I asked Rich Farr, our in-house legal counsel, if he could do this. And then he calls me and says, hey, I can't come to Philly. I've got another meeting. Can you pinch hit for me? So I said, I guess I'm it. But anyway, the task group, Rich is in charge. Jeff Coleman, previous ACI president, and an attorney is involved. Don is involved. Thank you. Kerry Kubczynski. Chris Rafferty, who is an owner's rep with CRE, and then Tom Wood, who's vice president of Eastern Operations for SECO. That is the task group that is there. Again, a pretty diverse group and all very influential in the industry. What is this task group to? We saw from what Phil just had, it's to align contractually the risk-reward of concrete design, construction, and ownership. So that's what we are trying to do, is look at that. This task group just got started. It's in its early stages. A lot of excitement. I was on the, I think it was the second phone call, Don, that you guys had a couple of weeks ago. I was on that call. And basically, how do we collaborate across the industry beyond the contract terms? Right now, we'll see here that we have some contractual issues that actually inhibit the collaboration process. And so really what we're trying to do is that curve that Kerry was talking about, that is just downright embarrassing when you take a look at that. And so what is it we can do? Because the end user, I'm involved in the Construction Industry Institute, and that group started a number of years back in the late 80s. And again, its purpose was, how do the large purchasers of construction services, how do they maximize their value? And we saw one of the things, one of their first studies was that graph that Kerry had that shows early involvement from the contractors, yet our contracts don't really address how that happens and how there's that R word, risk, and how do we fairly share that risk out there in the industry. So everything starts and ends with the contract. We know that. And what we got to do is emphasize the collaboration between the designer, the contractor, and the owner. All three of us have stakes in this game, and how can we really work on it? And as we look at the risk to all the parties, again, when you get in this adversarial relationship and you're spending years afterwards trying to resolve differences, nobody wins. I don't know about, as I look around the room, I know a number of people here. And Peter, it's way more fun to work on a good job than a bad job, isn't it? Yes, sir. And so what we're trying to do here is have fun jobs. You know, we're trying to get young people into this industry, and if their first job is one of these jobs that we're just like this through the whole job, and then they're get subpoenaed to testify later in a lawsuit, how long do you think they're going to stay in this industry? But if their first job is a job where we're working together and everybody's winning, they're saying, wow, I made the right decision. So how do we get there? So there's often times that we are asked to, the design assist process. I know that Structural does that. I know Conco does that. Baker, is there anybody here from SECO? I know SECO does a lot of that kind of work. But again, a lot of times, we as contractors, we do that kind of work, and we sort of get sucked in, and we never get paid for what we're, I shouldn't say never. There are some very good owners out there and contractors. But Peter, I'm sure you've given away free construction a number of times and never got paid for it, and never even got a chance. Your ideas got sold down the river to somebody else. And so we as contractors are very cautious about that. And the other thing is there's this fee-based approach. Again, Don, Kerry, when you're out there, submitting for a job, a lot of owners are just buying strictly on fee. And so when you're doing that, there's no money in there for value engineering. Now, the The building's safe, it's not going to fall down from a life safety standpoint, it meets all the codes. But if the designer has some extra money in there to be able to actually do the design work, to do some value engineering work, everybody wins. And I know we've been involved in a couple of projects with Carrie's firm, and again, the extra money that was spent up front, that 10-to-1 number I think is low in terms of what we have seen in terms of total project cost. So, but part of this is if the contractor is involved early and they can make the budget work, there ought to be some sort of commitment to the contractor that they get a chance to do the job. If they're going to, again, given all these good ideas and based on their experience and the value proposition they bring to the table is that they can help maximize the efficiency of that project, there ought to be some sort of reward for that. So again, as we take a look at this, there's three parties that are involved. What's the incentive for the designer to do this? And again, like I say, with the current fee structure, the incentive is just be conservative, make something that's going to be totally safe, and we don't see that innovation that we know is out there. Again, the contractors, there's got to be a reason that we get involved. And again, as we look at this, every time you've got these ideas, there are some risk involved. How do we minimize those risks to where those risks get shared between the contractor, the designer, and the owner? All the parties are involved. You know, one of the hot topics around here is 1L cement. And how many contractors we got here as I look around? You guys just all love 1L cement, right? No problems, no issues. Again, it is for the past three conventions. That's been the water cooler talk. Over the past couple of weeks, I was in Denver at a roundtable that had Portland Cement Association, NRMCA, and contractors. And it was to talk about what are the lessons learned from the 1L rollout, because this blended cement thing is not going to end with 1L. There's more coming down the pike. And how are we going to do that? And right now, most of the risk is with the concrete contractor, the subcontractor, which is not fair. And so how do we, you know, the owners are benefit and getting credit for having less, a better GWP on their project, but there's some contractors that are bearing all that risk. So how do we share that risk equally in the industry? So one of the things that this group is looking at from a deliverable is some white papers. And this is still just a concept. They've had 2 meetings, but it's something that's certainly being talked about. How do we really impact the industry? How do we allow pro to maximize what we are trying to do from that constructability standpoint? Again, as we look at that, the white paper right now, the thoughts are is, again, it may seem obvious if you can reduce the risk that there's some benefits, but what are those? You know, it was 2 summers ago, right, Phil, that we had our first task group meeting up in Farmington Hills at ACI headquarters, and we've come a long way, and thanks to Carrie and Phil and their leadership on doing that. I see this initiative here doing some of those same things. And what we want to do is look across other industries. Again, there's best practices and there's also worst practices that are out there. And how do we learn? So some of this has been done with the MEP trades. Let's talk to their associations and see what they've done. Kurt, the Construction User Roundtable, has done some things on this. Again, let's steal shamelessly from the other groups as we do this. And like I say, these groups have tried some stuff that hasn't worked, and there's no sense reinventing the wheel. So do we need to have a new wheel, or do we just change what some other people have done? And so part of there will be a deep dive that this task group will do in terms of what is it we can do, what's possible, what can we do differently. These are just a couple of thoughts on these papers. The first paper, it would be just to identify the challenges. What are out there? What are the risks that impact the industry? And again, if we talk about designers, contractors, and owners, what are your challenges? And let's see, you know, I suspect when we do that and we get all three of those parties in the same room, we're going to see some sort of Venn diagram, and there's going to be a lot of intersections there. And so how do we take those intersections and how do we maximize those intersections? And then the barriers and obstacles. One of the first things, I know there's a lot of people in here that sell. And again, Terry, when you're out selling, you're out there asking, you hear the objections, and then once you know the objections, you try to overcome the objections. And so but you can't overcome the objections if you don't know what they are. And that's why good salespeople ask a lot of questions. Most people think salespeople, all they do is talk. The good salespeople listen. They ask very good questions and they listen. And then they try and answer. That's what we got to do here. What are the barriers and obstacles? There's a lot of smart people in this industry. What can we do to solve those issues? The second white paper, what's envisioned, and this is all subject to change. These are just some initial ideas. Is what's the industry done to date? How do we benchmark? Again, what's worked and not worked? And what we're really trying to do is to make a difference in this industry. What can we do to impact the way we deliver construction services to the end user? Be that a developer, be that a Fortune 500 company, an industrial user. What is that? What can we do? Because right now, when most people start a construction process, and you probably know this from your own, if you've done remodeling projects at home, man, it's a terrible process. I mean, you talk about challenges. I suspect most of you, if you've built your own house, probably some of the most stressful times in your marriage has been when you were building a new house and trying to get agreement between the contractor and the subs and what your spouse wants and what you want. So again, just take that on a bigger scale. When you're working on a data center or a chip plant or a high-rise, those issues are out there. So what can we do to make that a more pleasant process? And so we're looking at, again, we certainly have identified in a couple of these presentations, we need to reduce the risk. Collaboration is the key. How do we do that? And innovation. And I would expect in our engineering schools, we're probably not doing enough to teach the value of collaboration. We talk a lot about design principles, but we don't do a real good job of collaboration. Again, we've worked for some clients where you mention collaboration and you just get a funny look. And then we got some other clients we've worked with that absolutely embrace collaboration and what can be done. And innovation, again, there's lots of things out there that we can do. And again, the student competition's going on today, and tomorrow is Student Day here at ACI. The future is bright with those students. If you talk to them and hear some of their ideas, we can figure this out. It's just we have to learn to play in the sandbox. What's that? There was a book, Everything I Needed to Learn, I Learned in Kindergarten, or something to that effect. This is not that difficult, but we make it way more difficult than it needs to be. So the task group's still in its early stages. To date, a lot of excitement within the group. We all see the value in doing this. And really what I'm hoping is we can look back several years from now and the people that are involved in this can say, we really did something here. I think probably most of us with our children as we drive around, we're driving through town and we're all a little sick. We're looking at the tower cranes that are up or the projects and we're saying to our spouses or to our kids, hey, we worked on that job. Don, I hope the people that are on this committee are able to say, hey, look at this contract that we were able to have that's become an industry standard. We need to have a vision, and that's my vision of what we can do. So with that, that's all I have. Any questions? Peter.
Hello? Working?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay. So how are we tracking our concrete, because this is all about concrete construction within the construction project. Are we tracking the percentage over time, the trends for, collaborative delivery procurement, like progressive design build at the project level, and where we fit into that? because that solves the problem, right? If we have a design-build project, it's already set up to be collaborative. It's the design, bid, build that screws us all up.
Yes.
So,
yes.
but are we tracking, like is Baker track over time, how much of the work is under a collaborative delivery procurement?
We do have some of that information, and we have certainly seen that the design collaborative, or where we have a collaborative effort, are much better projects.
And those, you're mixing the words here. So collaborative, we want collaboration, but collaborative delivery and a procurement is a contract that says the contractor and designer are working together.
Yes.
It's one contract.
Yes.
So are you tracking that over time, and is it increasing?
I can say that in our organization, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
we are seeing more, but not near what the industry could
I mean,
have.
we've seen an explosion in our segment of the business, and it's like, wow, why would you want to do something different? Isn't that the ultimate solution to this?
Yes, so
this
what we
dilemma?
got to do, we need some success, we have some success stories, we need to develop more, and then we got to get those success stories out to the owners so that they use this process.
We have a limitation that we're a sub to a big project, right, for the concrete portion. Do we have any information about how it works when you're in a collaborative delivery agreement at the prime level, how it flows down to the concrete contractor or designer? Is there any?
Phil, I'll let you, I don't think we have that, but we want to get there.
Those are all great questions. We want to get there, we haven't, and this task group may very well get to that point.
Okay.
And currently, we're not collecting that, but this task group may say that is an avenue that we're allowed to pursue.
Yeah, so maybe Pro should be a member of DBIA, because there's so much data there that's flowing out of there, and the trends just start going straight up in terms of the amount of construction going through that method. Anyway, I'm excited about it.
That's a good idea.
You know, Peter, to your credit, you know, I can remember 5 years ago, you said this industry needs a new operating system. And those were your terms. Much like DOS when started with an operating system for computers. Maybe that's where we are, because we see the existing design bid build operating system as a failure. But 75% of the industry is in that arena. And there's been books written, there's articles written. Unfortunately, in the concrete industry, there's so much design bid build, or there's owners that, in my view, take advantage of free construction suggestions, value engineering. Way too often in my history that I offer design suggestions only to have the owner take that project to, and I won't say Kerry's firm, but a design firm, and said, would you modify our design to leverage this input? And then 6 months later, we have to bid the project against 4 other competitors. And that didn't make any sense at all to me. But that's how the industry functions, if we don't change the operating system. And this one initiative, I think, could change our industry for future. And old guys like you and me and Kerry and Mike, unfortunately, us old farts, we may not capitalize on this, but it's our obligation to try to fix this for the next generation. Because if not, the conflict and the angst in this industry is going to prevent people from wanting to be in it. And I'm going to give a little shout out to Mike here. You know, he is studying, or has been studying for a couple of years now, the mental health in our industry. And I will just share with you a statistic that he shared with me. In our industry, the rate of help me here.
People that die by suicide.
People that die by suicide is 5 times the national average.
But that's not the concrete industry, it's construction.
That's a
Construction
in
industry,
general.
right.
We're not that bad in concrete.
Yeah. Yeah, we're better in concrete, you know, I'm sure we're better. But what that tells me is our operating system isn't working at all levels.
We have
So,
no stress on any of our jobs.
yeah. Thank you, Mike.
I have a question.
Yes.
If anybody can answer this. And, I mean, if Baker's the contractor, if Kerry's the engineer, things are going to run well, right? Because the two are going to work together. It seems such an individual thing, right? So for a ready-mix producer, right? Because you've talked about design and the contractor and the owner, but the ready-mix producer has a big stake in that too. And there's so many things that are unproductive on that side of it between the concrete contractor and the ready-mix producer, that there seems to be still that wall up, unless it's a designer like Kerry that understands there's some discussion there. There seems to be a wall up that no discussions can be had between the ready-mix producer and the general, or the ready-mix producer and the design team. So it's ready-mix producer, concrete contractor. If the concrete contractor doesn't understand or doesn't want to make a change, it doesn't go any further. And I don't know how we, get around that. And that's been a struggle for as long as I can remember.
Well, I think part of do unto others as you do done unto you. And so as concrete contractors and designers talk about this collaboration, we need to involve the ready-mix suppliers. I mean, that's what we have tried to do. I won't say we're successful 100% of the time, but yeah, they know the local materials.
Right.
They know what their restrictions are. And so, yeah, this collaboration goes to the rebar supplier, to the installer. There's actually a session tomorrow morning for the students is how does the young professional learn constructability in the real world? And that's, I'm presenting at that and got a couple of things I talk about, but there's nothing that replaces boots on the ground on the job site and asking questions.
And that's my question really, is how do we go, and I know this is the point of pro, and I'm trying to get my head around, how do we go from, if it's Baker, and there's others that I know, right, that always work with the ready-mix guy to make things better, right, to get the right mix and the right properties and all those things. How do we go from it being an individual thing to being an industry thing? And maybe, I know that's the overall question, but do we have any vision as to how we do that?
I think, I know there's a number of contractors here that are members of ASCC. That's certainly part of the vision of ASCC, again, to basically to improve the things of people that build with concrete. That's what we're trying to do. It's the value why we want all members of the construction process at ACI. More contractors, more designers, more owners. So that again, in unity, there's some strength, and we can start to talk about what needs to happen. That's, Terry, that's the real value. That's why you come to these meetings.
Yes.
And so, as I look around this room, we're preaching to the choir here.
Yes.
We got to make the choir bigger.
That's right.
Do you have time for another one?
I guess.
So talk a little bit about risk. You guys brought it up. It's a really important part of this conversation. We're in an industry that really doesn't like to do anything different because anything different involves risk. And the disproportionate of who owns that risk, who takes the risk, and there's a lot of people that are able to shut it down because maybe that's good for you, but it's not good for me, so I'm going to say no because I wasn't invited to the party early enough, or I wasn't part of it. To me, this how do we collaborate? A lot of it is where's the incentive, and it's either how do I make more money or how am I reducing my risk so I'm able to be more productive. You mentioned that, but can we get where do we go with this? How do we actually change that conundrum of what we're doing?
So before I answer that, which part, are you a designer, contractor?
Sorry, I'm a structural engineer designer
Okay.
who's recently put the owner's hat on, so I'm somewhere in between those two.
Okay,
But
okay.
but I have innovative things I want to do. I realize those bring risk, but we need to change that. We need to make it worthwhile to
Yes, and so
everybody involved.
I'll use BIM as an example. Jeff Coleman, he can tell you that his presentation on BIM has not changed, and he's been given it for 10 plus years. And it's all got to do with risks. So right now, most of us are using BIM on our projects. But most of us in the concrete side, we're doing the BIM work ourselves because the model doesn't get shared, because our attorneys are all telling us not to do that because of the risk that are involved. I'm just using that as an exhibit A. And you probably run into that as a designer. And so now you got the owner paying for 10 multi-primes that are doing some things, and we're using different programs, and I totally agree that we have got to do a better job when everybody's playing close to the chest and playing just their cards. The chance of something bad happening go up, and when we start to share that data, things get easier. And I don't have that answer, but those are the things that this committee is talking about, because again, there's an owner, there's lawyers, there's contractors, and so there's sort of a balanced view, and that's part of the challenge. But at least we've started the conversation.
Hey, Mike, I could leave you up here. I love your answers. You stepped in for Rick very well. I think I ought to just sit down and let you run this. And Don, you're one of those old hats too, so thank you. And Terry, you're part of this group that's we got to help change for the next generation what we're doing. Great questions, good debate. Keep in mind, if you're passionate about this, reach out to me. We'll get you on one of these task groups and help us solve this if you're not already there.